Yeah, please continue.
Okay. Hi, good morning. This is Gayatri here. I'm a certified CSA and CSSA Pega consultant. I take up different trainings and corporate trainings on various certifications of Pega, like starting with Certified System Architect, Certified Senior System Architect, and then Business Architects, and for the other certifications as well, like Decisioning Consultant and Marketing Consultant. So I generally deal with different types of trainings on the frameworks as well, like the CRM frameworks, customer service, sales automation and stuff. Okay. Today we'll go ahead with a brief introduction on about the Pega Certified Business Architect certification. So this certification is basically taken up by beginners of Pega, like who wanted to know the application development approach rather than going into a very technical development skill. Okay, rather than that, if you want to have a high level idea or approach of what is happening with the Pega platform and stuff, it is suggested that you go for this specific certification. So this is generally taken up by beginners in Pega. So in order to know the end-to-end application development process. Right? The current version of PCBA certification is for version 8, which we generally call it as Pega version 8 as Infinity. So this certification deals with the 8 version of Pega. Right? In the general perspective of business analysts is what we call, they generally deal with different kinds of things, like starting with the application development lifecycle. They are the ones who initiate the process by dealing with the customers or the stakeholders, getting the requirements, and then putting them into appropriate epics, features, stories, and stuff. Right? But Pega Certified Business Architect role is quite different. Unlike the conventional role of BA, here it is not business analyst anymore, it is business architect. So you will be involved as a BA, and if as a BA you are involved in the project, you have to work on the development as well. Like you will also be involved in the development. So the initial stages of the application development will be taken care by the business architects. So they are the ones who generally define the business rules. Okay? So all the business rules and the application behavior, so all of these are configured by the business architects. And once it is done, the project or the application is then handed over to the development team. Okay, this is quite different from the general BA perspective that we regularly deal with. All right. Yeah. And one other important factor, which is a differentiating aspect of the business analysts and the business architects, is that you do not need to deal with much of the Excel sheets. Okay, where directly, if you're a business architect in Pega, you could directly put in all the requirements, you could capture the objectives, you could get the requirements, and all of those can be directly put in the application. So where the application development growth is much faster when compared to the other platforms. So once you have a discussion with the client on what sort of requirements are needed, so you can develop the draft version of the application then and there itself, get it reviewed from the stakeholders, and then you'll be able to modify it accordingly. So that is the key differentiating factor that we come across when you use this Pega platform. And business architects are mostly involved in this part of the application development. So we'll be looking on to these things today. The introduction of Pega, the various application development studios, what are the roles of a Pega project, and maybe we'll try to create a Pega application. Okay? So starting with, what is Pega? Is it a software? Is it a platform? Is it a language, or what is it? Okay. So Pega is basically an application development platform, or you can call a software development platform where both the business users and the IT work hand in hand in order to complete your application. It is not just the development team that is focused upon, but you also have the business users working together with the IT. So business users would include our customers, then it would also include the stakeholders, the product owners, and also the business architects. So all of these people would categorize, or they can be considered as business users. So both the business users and the IT team, which is your actual development team, both should work hand in hand when you're working with Pega. It's not just the responsibility of the development team to get your application done, but it is also the responsibility of the business team as well. And most of it is uh, is due to the, or is it because of the low or no code approach that we generally follow? Because all that you can do is you can completely use the drag and drop components, or you can have visual tools that basically, like, you can completely drag and drop certain components and you can build in the application rather than writing the code. They would be I mean, it's not like there would not be any code. It's not like that, but you'll have to write a minimal set of code whenever it is required. It's completely not like a no code approach. You have to write the code depending upon your requirement. Okay? And Pega is recognized as an industry leader in the BPM category. So BPM is what deals with the business process management. So Pega is considered one of the pioneers in the BPM category. Yeah. So with Pega, the basic objective is that both the business and the IT, they work on the application together. Okay? And we have something called as direct capture of objectives, which basically allows, or which basically takes the responsibility of putting both these teams in sync. So then moving on to business process management. Before that, we'll see what is a process first. Rather than directly moving on to BPM tools, we'll start with the process. So anything which involves a series of actions or steps in order to achieve a particular outcome is called a process. So you generate a project report, which is a process. Okay, which involves a series of steps. You have to gather the information first, then you have to aggregate, or you need to sort that data together, and then you send it to the higher officials, which is like a series of steps. For example, you make coffee. That is also a process which involves a series of steps again. Okay, both of these can be termed as processes. So now let us see what is a business process. In order to call a process as a business process, I need to satisfy certain things. Like, it should be a collection of related events, activities, decisions that involve a number of actors and resources and that collectively lead to an outcome. Okay? When I have all of these things together, only then I call a process as a business process. Right? You making coffee does not yield any outcome to your organization, right? In that sense, I cannot call the coffee making process as a business process. But you generating a project report is providing some outcome to your organization, because of which because of the report, probably a lot of decisions can be taken. So which is trying to put in some outcome to the organization. So only then I call those specific processes as business processes. Okay? So let us see this through a typical example. So our regular online shopping example. If you are trying to purchase a book online, so what do? You basically start searching for that book in different e-commerce sites. Once you are finalized, then you see who are the vendors that are offering the book to a lower price. You try to compare different vendors depending upon the reviews and the prices. Once you finalize the vendor, then you add that into your shopping cart, and then finally you do the payment, after which the back-end process will start, where the book is packaged, then it is shipped, then it is finally delivered, right? Finally, it reaches the customer. So this is the general business process that happens in an e-commerce. So when we compare this particular thing with the business process, okay, where you have collection of related events, you initiating for buying a book could be an event, right? And the various activities that are involved in your purchase, probably the tasks that you do in order to make a purchase, like you start searching for it, starting for various e-commerce sites, then you start searching for the vendors, then you make payment. So all these are the various tasks that you perform in order to achieve this business process. So all of these are called activities. Then moving on to decisions. At any point in this particular business process, as in like as an end user or as a customer, you could choose what could be your payment option. Is it through credit card, or is it through debit card, or is it through internet banking? So all of these are the various decisions that you could take as a customer. And decisions could be also from the other side, which is from the vendor side. For example, if you are a premier customer, okay, and then you're guaranteed with 1-day delivery. In that case, maybe the vendor needs to use the airways in order to deliver your order. Or in the other cases, he could choose roadways, trainways, or in any other thing for the mode of transport. So the decisioning depends upon what kind of customer you are and how quickly you wanted your order to be received. After that, it involves number of actors, where you see in this particular business process, as a customer, you are involved, right? Who's one actor, and the vendor is involved, the manufacturer is involved. So then comes the shipping guy, the packaging guy, the delivery guy. So all these are the various actors who are acting on this particular business process. So then coming to resources. So resources are the things that help you complete your business process. They do not halt your business process, but they try to help complete your business process. For example, if you wanted your purchase or your order to be gift wrapped, okay, the gift wrapping paper would be a resource. After which, maybe when the delivery guy comes in, he asks you for an e-signature. Okay, the device that he brings in for e-signature could also be considered as a resource. And finally, the one which we are most focused on is the outcome. Okay, because that is what we do all this business process for. Right? So when you look at the outcome, once the book is delivered, you as a customer, you feel satisfied. I mean, you feel happy. And for the vendor, he receives his payment. The vendor is also happy. So this is the case of a positive outcome. But it is not always necessary that the outcome is positive. Assume the book you have received is not of good quality, or it is not the books that you are expecting. Okay. So what you do is you put in that book for a return or for an exchange. So in that case, as a customer, you do not feel satisfied, and as a vendor also, he also do not feel satisfied, because there are other follow-up transactions that have to be taken care, right? But there is some outcome, irrespective of its whether positive or negative, there is some outcome. So whenever I have all these things satisfied in a process, only then I call it as a business process. Now let us see what is BPM. When you are trying to manage all these certain business processes on a single unified platform. We call it as a business process management tool. Okay, this is not just for Pega. This is for any BPM tool which which we try to use, because they are basically like a unified platform of how you can manage your business processes. Okay, so in the previous example, you are just one of the customer who ordered a book. There will be a lot of other customers probably ordering something, returning something, or depending upon the various stages of where their business process is in, right? So I need to monitor, or I need to track each one of them as individual orders. So if I'm able to do it, then I could call that particular tool as a BPM tool. So in order to call something as a BPM tool, it also needs to satisfy certain things, where we have body of principles. Then I need methods to design, analyze, execute, and monitor. So for example, we all know that Java is based upon OOP, okay, object-oriented programming. So if I want to create my own language and I want it to be, and I say it to be, it is an OOP based language, which means it satisfies all the OOP concepts like object, class, then inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, and caption. So all of these have to be satisfied. So similarly, if I want to create my own BPM tool, I should also follow certain standards in order that to be called as BPM tool. So starting with, it should follow the body of principles, where we have 10 body of principles for a good BPM tool. So all of those have to be satisfied. Along with, I should be able to design, analyze, execute, and monitor the business processes. Only then I can call any random tool as a BPM tool. Okay. So now let us move on to, there are a lot of other BPM tools as well, like along with Pega. We have Appian BPM, then IBM BPM, Nintex, TIPCO. There are a lot of other BPM tools, but let us focus on why we have to choose Pega. It is because of these key differentiating factors that we have. It's basically a low or no code, as we have discussed earlier. Then it's completely model driven, which is basically like you can define the business process as how it goes generally in a pictorial representation. Then most of it deals with visual tools where you can drag and drop the components. Then the business users work with the IT. Then all the documentation is automatically generated. Then we have responsiveness. So this is one major advantage of Pega. For example, if you take any other languages or any other platforms, if you develop your application for a web, in the web, you will be able to look everything. Everything seems good. But when you try to open the same application or launch that same application in a tablet or a mobile, okay, then you may have disturbances in the look and feel. Probably you may get a horizontal scroll bar, or your text fields would go randomly here and there. Okay. But when you use Pega, it is like once you develop your application in web, it is also available in the tablet and mobile with the same look and feel. So the UI does not differ. So this is what is basically responsiveness. You build once and you deploy it anywhere, it looks the same. Okay. So this is the market review that is there for the various BPM tools. Those are available. So the research frequency of Pega is quite high, because Pega keeps on updating itself with different versions. So Pega started with version 5.1, then we have got 5.2, then 6.1, 6.2, 7, 7.1, 7.2, 3, and 4. Now we have 8, which is the latest version. So 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3. So which basically means that in order to use the latest Pega versions, it is mandatory that you have to be abreast of what is happening with the platform, or you have to learn. It's like you have to keep on learning the newer versions. So the research frequency is quite high. So this is something which is called as model-driven development approach, where you completely define your business process into a pictorial representation. which is basically a model of your business process. Like how your business process goes through is what you define in the model-driven development. So here we generally deal with three terminologies like case types, cases, and service levels. The business process is basically called a case type. And the various instances or the various, taking the example of the e-commerce, in the previous example, you are one instance of that business process. Some other customer, he is one other instance. So the number of transactions are basically the cases that we deal with. And we also have something called as service levels, which deal with the timelines of your application. So how far or for how long something has to be kept waiting. So the various timelines that are defined are called the service levels. So if you look at the capabilities of Pega, we have something called as DCO, which is direct capture of objectives. You can directly get in the objectives or requirements from the customer and put them in the application. Then we have guardrails, which are like the standards or the best practices that have to be followed. And then we have extensible applications, which is like you can build applications that can be reused for other features or other applications. Then you could have deployments in two ways, either on-premise or on the cloud. Cloud as in you could use any of these Amazon clouds or the Google clouds or whatever. And if it's on-premise, it is completely with the organization or within that particular system. Then moving on to the installation, we have two types of installations available. One is the personal edition and one is the enterprise edition. Pega is basically a web application. So when you launch the application, that will take you to a web browser. It's not a desktop application, right? So when I say it as a web application, I need an application server as well as I need a DB server, right? So in order to use the application server, I could use any of the existing application servers that are available, like Apache Tomcat, JBoss, IBM WebSphere. So any of these can be used. And for DB server, I could use Postgres, IBM DB2, Oracle. So any of these can be used. Personal edition is basically like a sample of, or for a practice version. It's basically for getting hands-on with the platform. Enterprise edition is specific for your enterprise applications on a larger scale. So then moving on, we have 4 app development studios specific for individual roles. Okay. So let us see those. We have App Studio, Dev Studio, Admin Studio, and Prediction Studio, which are specific for individual users. App studios are generally dealt with the business analysts and the application developers. The initial application development has taken place in the App Studio. So as BAs, we would be working with App Studio. And the dev team would be working for the Dev Studio. It's basically for the experienced application developers, the various security admins, so for all of these people. And then we have Admin Studio for all the system administrators. The backend process that happen are part of the Admin Studio. And we have Prediction Studio, which is specifically for the AI flavors and which are dealt by decision architects and data scientists. Moving on to the App Studio, this is basically focused upon the case design, the initial case design, then the channels and interfaces, UI authoring. This basically helps for the reviews with the stakeholders, because then and there we could get the application, or we could get the business process reviewed with the stakeholders and make the changes accordingly. Then we have Dev Studio, which is for experienced developers, like the system architects, senior system architects, then LSAs. So all these people would be working on the Dev Studio, where you deal with complex rules. So the security aspects of your application, the versioning, like depending upon the various releases, how you can version your application and how to reuse different components, parallel development. So all of these is part of the Dev Studio. Then moving on to the Admin Studio. This basically focuses on the back-end processing or the background processing in your application. Right? For example, if you are dealing with an insurance application, you need to have the policies renewed for every 6 months or 1 year. Right? I cannot have an executive sitting and looking at each of the policies, looking at when it has to be renewed. It is not ideally practical. So we have batch processing, which takes care of this stuff, right? So all that, the background processing and stuff is taken care in Admin Studio. And you could also look at the deployments working with the Admin Studio. Then we have Prediction Studio, which is for all the AI related aspects and features. Okay. So here you will be able to define different AI models like adaptive model, predictive model, text models and stuff. All of those is taken care in Predictive Studio. Okay, this is how the studios are being divided in a Pega application. So then moving on to the various roles that are available. So like every other project team, even for a Pega project also, it involves a mix of different skills. Okay, people with different skills are important in order to implement your application. So in a general perspective, for a Pega project, these are the roles that are defined. Business architects, who basically work with the product owners, get the business rules and stuff, and they are the ones who, understand the business needs. Then we have system architects, who are basically the development team, the CSAs, CSSAs, and LSAs. All of these people would work on the application development. So then we need a project manager who looks after your project plan and delivery. Then we need practice leaders to ensure that the project is as per the deadlines or in the right direction. Then we have product owner, who is basically the key part or the key person who defines the product backlog and defines the acceptance criteria. Then we have the QA team, and like any other team as well, which is for functional and performance testing. Then I need a Scrum Master who looks after your agile methodologies and makes sure that the team is following all the Scrum methodologies. Then I need a specialty architect, but this is only when it is required. So probably as a CSSA, I do not have an expertise on UI UX. So in that case, I need a specialty architect who is an expertise in UI UX, and I'll be able to deploy him in the project. So then I have SMEs, who are basically knowledgeable persons, probably in the domain or in the application. So whenever there's some ambiguity in the requirements, we could always go to the SME to get it resolved. Okay, then we have the system admins and IT resources. Okay, these people would actually take care of deploying your applications, looking after the securities related to the ports or the browsers and stuff. So we would need all these people in a Pega project. But it is not always necessary that all of these roles should be available or all of these roles should be used. It's not necessary. It depends upon the project requirement, basically the size of the project, the duration of the project, and the scope of the application. So depending upon these three things, we would decide what roles have to be taken up. Okay? And there could always be a chance of overlapping roles, okay, where my project manager could also be the Scrum Master, or My LSA could be a system administrator where he looks after the deployment roles. Depending upon the requirement, we could always go with overlapping roles. So all of this is depending on what sort of application you're trying to build, scope, size, and the duration. So this is generally what we look after. I mean, starting with why we have to go for Pega and like, what is Pega, like what are the various studios that are there and stuff. So probably going forward, we will be looking at the various things like what could be done in app studios, like what features can be explored, so that all of that we'll be looking in the coming sessions. Yeah. So any other doubts? Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Chandu?